entitled, since we don't have a PowerPoint, Making the Most of Your Time. Making the most of your time. And you could imagine for a moment a nice little YouTube video that's popped up on the screen. And it's a picture or it's a movie, a little film of this guy who spends all of his time on the internet. I mean, every waking hour is on the internet, whether it's on Facebook or whether it's on YouTube, finding music, surfing web pages, all of these kinds of things. And of course the dude, what's Travis's screen name, Scott? Does he have one?
It's Ben's, actually. It's Preacher Ben something.
No. I'm talking about Travis in the movie.
Oh, it's Mayhem.
That's Mayhem. Mayhem shows up and then gives him a big talk about wasting all of your time on things that aren't necessarily all that important. Now, let's be honest. Just it's okay to do this. How many of you guys say you spend at least 1 hour a day on some type of leisurely technology? Whether it's Facebook, smartphone, television. Okay. 2 hours a day? It's summertime. I mean, sure, we're not going to school, right? How about 5 hours a day? Come on, raise them up. Don't be ashamed. All right. I'm on technology 5 hours a day. Anybody do 8 hours a day? Probably. Okay. All right. Now, I'm going to be talking about the value of technology in a little bit, but there are some things that we need to realize. All right. So this is PowerPoint slide number 2. Too much Facebook, TV, etc. can affect your 4 things. All right, so this is the starting line. This is what too much Facebook, TV, etc. That's ETC, in case y'all don't know how to spell etc. Too much Facebook, TV, etc. can affect your, number 1, physical health. I don't know if you guys ever thought about that, but when you're always on the computer, and you're always on watching TV, and you're always playing Xbox. By the way, that's a form of technology I didn't ask earlier, so I guess some of your hands can raise up a little bit. Or when you're always on a game system or whatever, that can affect your physical health. Now, who wants to maybe try to guess, and it's really not all that difficult, but how can too much technology affect your physical health in a negative way? Yes, ma'am. Yeah, staring at the same thing over and over again can mess up your vision, okay? How else can too much technology affect your physical health?
Sleep.
Yeah, in what way, Alex?
No sleep.
Yeah, no sleep. You stay up all night, and as a result, you're not getting good sleep, and you're cranky and groggy all day the next day, and you ready to bite someone's head off anytime they try to tell you to do something. All right? Anybody else? John?
Is that your circulation?
Yeah, your circulation doesn't get any blood flowing. Yeah, your legs or your arms may fall asleep, or it's something in that regard. And when you're always inside on technology, where by implication does that mean, if you're always inside doing that, where by implication does that mean that you're not?
Being inside.
Outside, exactly. You ever hear the old timers, your parents or grandparents talk about, well, when I was their age, I played outside all day and never even wanted to come inside. Anybody ever heard anybody say that? And yeah, well, there's some truth to that. And there's truth to the idea that when we're always on technology, it can interfere with our physical health. Not just the idea of getting some fresh air, but sometimes we spend our extra time doing those things. We don't have time for walking or exercising or riding a bike or taking a jog. And as a result, that can affect our overall physical health. And we can become very lazy and not want to do anything as a result of that. All right, number 2, and we're now running on reserve battery power, which is okay. two, too much Facebook, TV, etc. can affect kind of what people should or should not look like. And when we focus all of our energy on what the women in the movies look like or what the men look like in the movies, and we start comparing ourselves to what we see on TV, in the movies, we start saying things such as, man, I'll never be that pretty. Or man, I'll never look as good as that dude. Or I'll never be able to, and all of these things. And it's probably because we're watching too much of these items. Too much Facebook, TV, etc. can also reflect or affect number 3, your relational health. Okay, can we get this dog out of here? Can you go? The dude's gonna, what do they call that, spot me? Mark me. The dude's gonna mark me in a minute. During the lesson. Okay, you can go now. You're excused. Okay, it's not, somebody can help. I can just see tonight on the slot machine all of my questions are not going to be answered. Alright, number 4. Alright, well, no, number 3, relational health. I won't tell you who it is. She's not here. We kind of talk about it kind of in a humorous sense. One day, this was a few years ago, I called this youth group member and I asked her if she was going to be going to such and such event. And she says, Eric, can you hang up and text me because I'm not good at talking on the phone. And I'm thinking, and this is kind of strange. So I sent her a text and asked her the same exact thing I asked on the phone via text. And we had this nice conversation on the text. But too much technology impacts our ability to communicate. We don't know how to talk to people anymore because it's all about texting and emailing and Facebook messaging. And so just be mindful of that. And number 4, most importantly, too much Facebook, TV, electronics, movies, other things that take up our time can affect our spiritual health as well. We can be so tired, or rather we can stay up all night on Saturday night doing anything on a computer or playing games. What happens on Sunday morning when mom and dad's trying to get us to go to church? We wake up. We don't want to wake up. They finally drag us out of bed. We put on clothes that probably are wrinkled because we didn't have time to iron them. And we don't have a matching belt and shoes. And we walk into church and we're half asleep. And our worship and our Bible class time is a total waste of time because we wasted that time on Saturday night. And so to see too much of these items can be detrimental. Alright, so we're talking about making the most of our time. We got and all of those 4 things would have really matched well with the little YouTube video. But some thoughts from the Bible about making the most of our time. Number 1, James chapter 4. Will somebody read for us verses 13 through 15? James 4, 13 through 15. We got to read it loud.
Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow you go to such and such a city, you spend a year there and engage in business and make a profit. But you do not know what your life will be like tomorrow. You're just a vapor that appears for a little while and then vanishes away. Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we will live and also do this or that.
Alright, so as we think about some thoughts from the Bible, as we're looking at James 4, it says that our lives are like vapors. Like a little bitty mist in the air. It appears for a short time and then vanishes away. So some thoughts from the Bible. Number 1, based on James 4. Don't take time for granted. Don't always assume that tomorrow is going to come. And that was the problem in James 4, is that they were so focused on making a profit and doing this tomorrow, and they were assuming that they were in control of time. But rather, it's God who's in control of our time, and He is the one who is going to allow us to live the rest of the day, or allow us to do these things tomorrow, or next week, or next month. And so we need to be mindful that if we just assume we have all of this time, then we could very quickly learn that that is not always the case. So number one, don't take time for granted. Now, secondly, Acts chapter 26, verses 27 through 29. And this is the story about King Agrippa. If somebody would read those three verses for us. Acts 26, 27 through 29.
King Agrippa, do you believe the prophets? I know you do. Then Agrippa said to Paul, do you think that in such a short time you can persuade me to be a Christian? Paul replied, short time or long, I pray God that not only you, but all who are listening to me today may become what I am, except for these changes.
Alright, so Paul didn't want him to become in prison, but he wanted him to do something today. That's verse 29. What was Paul wanting Agrippa and everyone else to do today? Become a Christian. That's exactly right. So as we're thinking about making the most of our time, number one, we don't want to take time for granted. Number two, we want to be a faithful Christian today. That's how we can make the most of our time. And we don't want to be like Agrippa, who says, you know, I'm almost ready to become a Christian. Agrippa may have said something to the fact of, okay, well, I know I need to be baptized and I'm almost ready to do it, but I'm going to maybe wait till tomorrow, or I'll wait till after this next school year is over. Or, you know, thinking about some folks that may be a Christian, they're thinking, you know, I know I've already been baptized and I know I'm not living right, but, you know, I still got a little bit of time. They say, you know, I can repent tomorrow. Or I'll just do this one sin one time and I'll never do it again. Or I can just wait till the summer's over and then I'll start doing these things. And we're almost persuaded to be faithful today, but we're not. So we need to, don't take time for granted. Number two, become a Christian or become faithful today. And then number three, understand what responsibility is. Understand what responsibility is. And we're going to go to the Old Testament for this, to the book of Esther, chapter 4, verses 13 and 14. Now, as you turn in there, the story of Esther may not be as familiar to some. I know many of you do know the story. But Esther was one who was chosen to be a queen. She was one of God's people. And she, because of her title, because of her position, she was in a very, very important spot. And she would have the opportunity to be able to make sure all of God's people remain safe and not endure some type of persecution from the Persian leaders. And so, somebody, if you would read Esther 4, verses 13 and 14.
And Mordecai commanded to answer Esther, Say not with thyself that thou shouldest stay in the king's house more than all the kings. For if thou altogether holdest thy peace at this time, then shudder in marchment and deliverance arise to the king from another place. But thou and thy father's house shall be destroyed, and who knows whether thou art come to the kingdom for some time of this.
Yes, thank you. For such a time as this, Esther was a responsible woman of God. Alright, so in parentheses underneath this little point here about understanding what responsibility is, here is the formula of responsibility. And I guarantee you this will be asked tonight at the slot machine event. Alright, this is the formula for responsibility. Ability plus opportunity. Sergio, you gotta remember this. You're a mathematician. Even though there's no numbers in this. But it is a formula. Ability plus opportunity equals what? Responsibility. That's right. So as we're trying to understand what responsibility is, and we're making the most of our time, we know that if we have the ability to do something and the opportunity to do it, then that makes us responsible. And that's connected to what we talked about last night about being accountable. We can be held responsible to make the most of our time and to do as much good as we possibly can. Alright, so from these three passages, what are three big ideas we've learned so far on making the most of our time? Go ahead, John. Number one, don't take time for granted. Number two,
Want to be a faithful Christian today?
yeah, be a faithful Christian today. I'm doing this. Number two, alright. Number three, alright, and understand what responsibility is. Alright, guys. Now, making the most of your time. Got some my extra notes on my phone here. Technology, right? Alright. These are what I call my strategies of time management. Or, they're not mine in a sense, but this is the list I've come up with. Here are some time management strategies. Now, I will tell you, a lot of these items I had our sophomores, juniors, and seniors in mind. But of course, they will apply to the younger folks as well. Alright, so how do we make the most of our time? We understand we don't need to take time for granted. We understand we need to be a faithful Christian today. We understand what responsibility is. Alright, so here are 7, go through these quickly, 7 specific things you can do to make the most of your time. Number 1, live with purpose. Live with purpose. How many of you have goals? Anybody have any goals? Alright, Dustin, what's one of your goals?
Running every day.
Okay, running every day. Alright, so you got to make time to run in order to do that. What's one of your goals? Alright, to be a good example. Yeah, to your young Christian brother. Exactly, alright.
Graduate with all A's so I can get into physical therapy school.
Okay, so graduate with good grades, all A's, and to get into physical therapy school. We're going to make the most of our time when we have a reason to do what we're doing. When we're living with purpose, when we are having these goals. We need to have long-term goals and short-term goals. And those items need to be based upon priorities. We need to live with purpose, and so we need to keep God first. We need to keep family a priority. We need to keep school a priority. And those that are working, we need to keep work a priority. I have my own purpose statement, and it goes something like this. My life purpose is to connect others to Jesus and His church by providing a Christian example and by reaching out on spiritual, relational, academic, and community levels. And so everything I try to do is fitting underneath that life purpose. And it's something I try to live by every day. I'm not perfect, of course, but it is something at least that I'm attempting to connect my time with purpose. And we all have life purpose. We all need to be faithful. We all are trying to get to heaven. We're all trying to do the very best we can at school. We're all trying to be an encouragement and a good example to others. And when we have our life purpose in mind, then we are going to connect our time with those items. Number 2, and these aren't in particular order, but number 1 was the most important. But number 2, in order to make the most of our time, we need to eat right and exercise. We need to eat right and exercise. Now, I have found when I am not eating right and when I am not exercising, I don't sleep as well at night and I don't feel as good during the day. However, when I'm watching what I'm eating and I'm getting some exercise during the day, I find the opposite is true. I sleep better at night and I feel better during the day. And some of us are having difficulty managing our time because we're always tired. And the reason why we may always be tired is because we don't have a good, healthy diet. And we're not getting any exercise because we're just sitting in front of the computer or the TV doing absolutely nothing very much. So that's number 2, eat right and exercise. Number 3, if we're making the most of our time. Number 3, we need to get organized. How many of you's rooms is an absolute mess? Alright, so how many of you, when your parents say go clean your room, you just cringe and you put it off as long as you possibly can? It'll all go exactly right when they say. Alright, but when we think about getting organized, we're going to have clean rooms. We're going to use folders for our notes at school. How do y'all, I know there's a lot of technology and all that kind of stuff, but when you take notes at school, or for example, this little booklet, let me see this. This little booklet right here. Jacob, what are you going to do with this thing once camp is over?
I don't know.
Just be honest. You think you'll ever see it again?
Probably put it on my bookshelf.
All right, you're going to put it on a bookshelf. That's an example of being organized. Great answer. All right. When we're organized, we're going to have a clean room. And it's not just the idea of having a clean room, but it's the idea of knowing where our stuff is. How many times have you been late somewhere because you don't know what kind of clothes what clothes you're going to wear? Because you couldn't find what you were looking for. But if your room was clean, you would have been able to find it quicker. You would have been able to get dressed and get to where you needed to be. Also, as far as getting organized, using folders and keeping notes together for school, and so that when you have to study for a test, you don't have to spend 3 hours trying to find your notes in order to study for 30 minutes. But if you know where your stuff is, you can spend that 30 minutes or an hour studying, and you can have all that other time available to do whatever you want to do. And again, this is for our older folks. When you think about getting organized, you want to save phone numbers and email addresses. And so let's say you're at college. I know some of these guys are about to go to college, and there's someone in your class that you're working on a project with, and it's due, I don't know, Friday morning at 8 o'clock. It's Thursday night about 10:30, and there's something you've got to figure out, but you don't know where the dude's phone number is, or you don't know where the girl's email address is. You don't have any idea how to contact them, but if you had written down their phone number or saved their email address, then you would be organized enough to know how to contact them within just a couple of moments and be able to use that other time for for other things you want to do. All right, number 4. Making the most of our time. Make a to-do list with action words. How many of you ever make a to-do list? All right, we all make to-do lists. One of them might have to, this is something that I often write down on my to-do list. Sermon. Just one word, sermon. And I know what that means. I've got to get my sermon ready for Sunday. But I find that when I use action words, I'll say something to the effect of being more specific. I'll say, read the text. Look up old files. And I'm being, that's a bit extreme, but the point is, we want to have some action steps. And very specific. So getting back to the idea of cleaning your room. On your to-do list, even though you may not write it down, knowing your parents are telling you that you need to do this, you may have on your to-do list, clean your room, or clean your house. And that's like this big thing to do. But instead of writing down, or in your mind, clean your room, you may say, bring dirty clothes to laundry room. Pick up all old food and take the trash out of our room. You're cleaning your room, but you've got action-specific things connected to it. What else could be an example of something that can be very action-oriented to a common task? What's that? When you're cooking.
cooking.
Yeah, okay, yeah. If I'm gonna, I don't know, let's say cook spaghetti. I mean, you gotta go and make sure you have spaghetti and do all of those things. All right, so very good. Enough about that. Number 5. We're making the most of our time. And number 5, use technology to your advantage. And again, I know I'm kind of leaning toward the older guys here, juniors, seniors. But using technology to your advantage. This thing right here, my smartphone. Yeah, it's not as cool as an iPhone. It is an Android. Sorry if that offends anyone. But this is, I don't know what I would do without this thing. It's got phone numbers, email addresses. It's got things I use, Dropbox, Evernote, all that kind of stuff. Those applications, because God does have an app for that. Sorry, that was a Super Saturday clip. But using technology to our advantage. Not all technology is bad. In fact, it's good. And here's the thing. Are we, and don't misunderstand what I'm saying. We need to spend time having fun doing nothing. We need to relax and enjoy life. But we can use technology to our advantage, whether it's having a laptop or our what are these schools going to? What does Freed have now? Don't they have iPads or yeah? You're paying for the iPad. You might as well use it in some form or fashion in order to make technology work for you. If you need to be somewhere at a certain time, use the calendar in your phone or use the calendar on the internet, on your email to be able to make the most of your time. Number 6, and I wish this was showed up on a PowerPoint, but it's okay. Learn the value of do not disturb. And I have that in parentheses. Do not disturb. Now, before I say anything else on this point, this doesn't apply to your parents. Never ever tell your parents, don't disturb me right now. They always have the right to disturb you. You're never too busy in order to have your parents disturb you. But here's the point that I'm making on this. When we're trying to do an assignment, or we're trying to clean our room, we're trying to, I don't know, clean the house, we're trying to do whatever chore our parents have asked us to do, we're trying to finally write that paper that we know is due tomorrow, we have to be willing and able to not be disturbed. So, if it takes turning the TV off, turning the computer off, turning your phone off. How many people have a smartphone that is, the second someone posts something on Facebook, it does a little vibrate or a ding or whatever? I mean the second. Yeah, if you keep that on side of you while you're trying to write this 3-page paper that's due tomorrow, and every time someone posts something, it vibrates or dings, then you're going to be disrupted from accomplishing what you need to do in that paper might not ever be done. And number 7, last but not least, create margin in your life. Create margin in your life. And what I mean by that is some people call it wiggle room, extra time. For example, Sergio's going to LSU, right? You're excited about that, and I don't know how much time is in between the 2 classes. And so usually it's like 10 minutes, maybe, give or take. But if it takes a person 7 minutes to walk from class A to class B, then when that bell rings for the class to end, you got to get right over there to give yourself 3 minutes of extra time. However, if it takes 7 minutes and you got 10, but you play around for 3 minutes after class, and then give yourself 7 minutes to take a 7-minute walk, what's going to happen?
You'll be right on time.
You'll be late. You will see somebody you know on the way over, and they're going to ask you a question of, hey, can you help me with this? I got a question with that. And when you don't have that margin time, then it's going to be tough to be somewhere on time. It takes, from my house to get to church, it takes 28 minutes. to get to church, from our house to the church. And so if church starts at 9 and we decide to leave at 8:32 a.m., what do you think's going to happen?
Go get the thing.
Huh?
You go with time.
I might be right on time, but if we catch an extra light, or if there's some type of traffic, or a flat tire or something like that, because not having that margin is going to create a lot of wasted time and missed opportunity to do some things. All right, we're wrapping up. What are some other things that maybe I left out that has been helpful, that works for you as far as making the most of your time? Hiding? Yeah, and that may be the result of do not disturb. The experts say that you don't have to answer every call the second it comes in, or you don't have to reply to every Facebook message the second that it comes in. And so, Alex, I would think when you say hide, and just kind of removing yourself from anyone and everything else.
The most secret place in the library.
That's it, the most secret place in the library. All right, anybody else? What else? Anything else you guys have done to manage your time well? Sarah?
Using a calendar.
Yeah.
Not planning too many things on one day.
Yeah, using a calendar so you don't overbook, or if you don't, if you don't want to do 17 things in one day, you can spread it out a little bit. Yes, ma'am.
Well, kind of like what Alex said, like putting your phone where you can see it.
Yeah, exactly. And if that text or that Facebook message comes in, or that email, you can just you can check it when it comes when you're done the assignment, and then that will keep you from being messing up on that particular time. Oh boy, Kaiser is actually going to speak on time management. Go ahead.
Do as much as you can the night before. So you wake up in the morning, you're not rushing around and
How many of you guys, I'm just curious, how many of you guys know what you're going to wear to church on Saturday night before you go to bed that night? That can help out quite a bit. How many of you don't have a clue what you're going to wear until Sunday morning, right before it's time to go to? Yeah, okay. And here's all of our latecomers that just raised their hand. I'm just kidding. All right. Anybody else? Craig, Mr. Craig.
Pray before you start your day. Ask God to try to move whatever He can out of the way and help you succeed in whatever you
and use that idea of priority, of understanding we're not taking time for granted, and making the most of every day, and asking God to help us stay connected to what is very important to us and what we are trying to do. All right, so very good.
Devontae.
We got one more. Go ahead.
Do what's more important. Like if you have if you get homework for Bible class and you have a sister input, then
Yeah, well, do both of them, but you want to do the Bible class. And by the way, one last thing I'll say: when you have a list of 6 or 7 things you need to do for like school, if you have 4 classes, you may have 5 classes, you may have 6 or 7. If you got a bunch of things that are due the next day, I would make a list of everything you need to do from easiest to hardest. Do the easiest stuff first, get it done, and then you can focus on the stuff that's going to take a bit more time and energy.